Greetings, comrades, and welcome to a video that has been a long time in the making. There has been a lot of behind-the-scenes hours that have gone into this video, and I'm happy to finally bring it to fruition. So what we are going to be doing today is a realism guide for Workers and Resources Soviet Republic, and this will also be an updated version of my How to Start a Successful City, which I did about 2 years ago now. So I think that guide is actually pretty, you can still use the overwhelming majority of information in it. The only thing it doesn't have right now is water and sewage, which where I built it, you could very easily add it because I just built it by the river. You draw the water from the river, you dump the sewage down the river, you're good to go. But for realism mode, it's going to be a very, very different ball game. And it's going to be almost entirely different from what we did before. So without further ado, let us jump into a new game, and I will show you the parameters that we will be using. The one thing you don't want to do, in my opinion, when starting up a game in realism mode is actually have it on one of these populated maps. The reason for that being is because that in realism mode, it takes a long time to get things started. And during that time, all your people are going to be complaining, oh, I have no electricity, oh, there's no water, there's no food, oh, I'm starving to death, blah, 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 blah. And it's just going to annoy the crap out of you. So in order to avoid that, just start with no population, and then when you're ready to go, you can start to move in people, and it will be a much better experience for everybody involved. So we're going to do what is my favorite map, which is the Eastern European medium hills. And this one will be blank. No people are going to inhabit it beforehand. So overall difficulty, we're going to click realistic, but I'm going to adjust a few things. You can do the strategy if you play with hard mode money amount, although I would recommend doing it on medium just for your own sanity. Obviously, we're going to enable realistic mode and unsatisfied citizens. Great, which is honestly, I haven't been able to tell much of a difference between great and medium, great and reasonable. I think on great, they just leave faster. So we will leave that on great, go from there. Energy management, buildings plus vehicles, water management, we're going to obviously enable that. Seasons, we're going to enable. Building fires, I'm just going to put this back on normal. Having frequent building fires is just a useless headache. Global events, we're going to enable. Pollution, we're going to enable. Education simulation is going to be complex, so they need to go to, so basically kids will need to start at kindergarten and move their way up. Crime and justice, we're going to enable. That's a new system that we haven't really delved into. Traffic simulation, we're going to keep it as complex. This is another new system which we haven't really delved into. We're going to enable our researches. Day-night cycle, we're going to keep the moving sun. I'm going to start it off at 1960. But I do like to have all the vehicles available. This is just my personal preference. Okay. All right. So we've loaded in and we have our map here. As we can see, it is the same map that we did our initial playthrough on. However, there are no populated buildings, roads, anything like that. It's currently completely blank. So now that we have this blank canvas, let's actually pull up our mini map here. Where are we going to start our first city? Where are we going to build our initial little village? And to me, the best candidate for that is going to be right over here on the, I guess this would be the western side of the map. Okay. So right over here on the western side, there are a couple places which make this ideal. The main reason you want to build over here is because they have a border crossing which has multiple road inputs, and this is extremely important because this will save you so much time and so much energy and so much effort by building your initial city close to a border crossing so goods can come in faster, and B, with multiple points of crossing. So one of the big things that this happened to me when I initially played realism mode, and seems to happen to a lot of people when they start off, is getting traffic jams at the border. Having multiple entrances will do a ton of work in alleviating that problem. So looking here, we have two ideal candidates for initial areas to build our first city. So you see, we go over here, there's only one border crossing, and as we mentioned, it's very important to have multiple border crossings. We have Karabadag, over here, and then moving up, we also have Starlina, which is, I think, going to be the better candidate. And the main reason is that it is much closer to water, which is going to help alleviate some of our initial concerns. There are two disadvantages to this starting place. One is that it does not have as much open space, flat open ground, as over here. Over here, we have a ton of room that we can build our initial city, but having that access to water is pretty nice. And we do have a pretty sizable amount of room here, so I don't think we're going to feel too claustrophobic initially. So once you've decided the initial area where you want to start to build your city, and another thing I would also recommend is that you do build with a Warsaw Pact border. The main reason is just because the game doesn't have as much access to NATO vehicles and things like that. So I feel like if you were to do a NATO playthrough, you would be severely hampered in terms of the number of vehicles and the types of vehicles you would have access to. So the very first thing you are going to want to do is build two dirt roads coming off your initial border crossing. And the reason you are going to want to do that is, one, you want to have two entrances again to alleviate that potential traffic jam. And another reason is because that in realism mode, obviously they have to do all the work for upgrading the roads on their own. In non-realism mode, when you were building roads, you can just hit a button if you had the money and they would basically build automatically for you. You can't do that, so you always need to be thinking about alternate ways that people can get around various roadblocks. So it's important to have two roads, especially going to your initial entrance, because one of the things you can do at the start, and one of the things that we will do, is begin to upgrade one side to a gravel road. And this will help to, once we get more traffic, it'll make things move smoother. Right now at the start of the game, we don't need to worry so much about those traffic jams. So we can initially build this road and upgrade this road and have it pay off in dividends later down the road. So now that we have our first initial point set out, I'm going to decide where we're going to build our town hall, if you will, our city center. And I'm thinking sort of right over here along the riverbank would be a cool area for a nice area for a city center. So anyway, I'm going to build my sort of main residential area and city center probably right here, right along the road. Unfortunately, I can't do anything yet because I don't have the equipment and bulldozers, but that's not a huge deal. We're going to get that very quickly here. So now that we kind of have our initial plot laid out, where we want to go, where we want to build our city center, the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to build two, I guess you can call them depots, if you will, with the free construction buildings and other buildings that you get at the start of the game. So realism mode gives you access to a small amount of free, quote-unquote, buildings to get the ball rolling. And with these free buildings, we're going to have two sections that we're going to build. One is going to be a distribution section, and we're going to build that right next to the border. And the next will be a construction section, which we're going to build closer to where we want to have our actual city built. So we'll start off with our distribution center. And the reason you want something like this, again, is going to help alleviate traffic jams in the future. And again, I know it seems like I'm harping on that, but it is a big deal and will be a big deal if you don't pay attention to it moving into the future. So one of the initial lifebloods of your quote-unquote empire, is going to be construction offices. And we are going to want to have 2 of them here at our initial distribution point. On top of that, we are going to want to have 1 free distribution office here. And then in addition to that, we are also going to want, we're also going to want a free gas station. And this will be our initial little, building zone. So over here, one of the things we are going to want very, very quickly is we are going to want to get an oil tanker, because we are going to need to keep things fueled and running. So let's look for a good one. I know I like to have all of them open at the start, but I like to at least somewhat keep things to a reasonable time frame. So I don't, build 1980s vehicles, usually 1960. But when it comes to our oil tanker, this one's pretty good. So we'll get a couple of those. And then over here at our construction office, what we're actually going to do first is we're going to need some, oh shit, I just realized we're actually going to need buses. And the reason is that because they can distribute people to where they need to go. And then into our next area, we are going to buy a dump truck. And I always like this one, the Belarusian one, because it's just got so much girth. Such a girthy boy. So we're going to need that. So here we're going to go with a full 5 dump trucks. This again will help us distribute resources and construct buildings, construct things, that kind of crap. So this will be our initial starting position. And then moving over, probably right over here, I think we're going to have our construction area. Oh, okay, that's the maximum. Okay, perfect. And then here, you can also have, I suppose we should, we will start with a couple storage depots. You get free storage depots as well. Where's the free ones? Here they are. So we're going to get a couple storage depots, and we can use these to store building supplies. Cool. That reminds me, I forgot. We need covered hulls at our distribution office here. Good, I only bought 1. Okay, you only need 1 oil tanker, at least right now. Oh no, sorry, not covered hulls. Uncovered hulls, open hulls. And I always get these ones from Czechoslovakia. Wait, did I get 2 vehicles? Ah, crap, it did. Well, see, again, this is why I like to start a little bit of extra money. Sometimes you make mistakes, sometimes you make misclicks, and if you have too tight of a budget, you'll pretty much just have to restart. All right, I think that is going to be the initial. Actually, you know what? One last thing I will do: get 1 more gas station up closer to here, just so we can, again, keep things moving. It's important to keep things moving and to think about how to keep things moving as smoothly as possible. Ooh, actually, yes, another tip that I learned, and then I will pass on to you guys, is that you do get, for example, when it comes to storage, one of the storages you do get, let me see if I can find it here, is a free aggregate storage. Here we go, free aggregate storage. But it kind of sucks, and the reason why is because there's no, it doesn't use gravity or anything like that. So it takes forever to get gravel into the dump trucks, because they're essentially just shoveling it in with actual shovels. So you don't really want to waste your time with that. As soon as you can, try and get an actual aggregate storage. I'm not going to build it here because it won't be very efficient here right now. So what are we going to need? Well, obviously we're going to need concrete mixers, because it's important to pour concrete. Anyway, I'm going to splurge a little bit. Get these Polish concrete mixers. We'll get 4 of them. Next, we are also going to need to buy a couple different things. Obviously, we're going to need a bulldozer. And obviously we are going to need, well, we don't need a paver yet. We will probably get one eventually, although it's not as important right now as it will be in the future. We are going to need lots of excavators. In fact, I think I'm going to put 2 here. And then in addition to that, I'm also going to get a roller there. So that'll be the next office. What do we need next? We are going to need some road cranes. Road cranes are very important. And do we actually have, okay, there are some older ones here from the Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, known at the time. Either way, I do like these Polish ones. So 2 of them should be reasonable. And then I think, 2 covered hulls, because they carry things like mechanical components and shit like that. And next, we're going to need uncovered hulls. And is that it? We have one more section. So I'm going to let that play out a little bit here. Ooh, very nice, man. For our distribution centers. Mostly uncovered hulls here. I'm going to say one spot. So yeah, now that we've bought all these vehicles, we've had our spending spree. They're going to start to come out slowly but surely. I'm thinking I might want to switch these over, actually. I'm wondering if I should have the cement mixers right next to the border and the dump trucks over here. That's what I'm going to do, actually. So yeah, that's a nice thing. It's like, I did not need 2 fuel trucks, which reminds me, actually, I should have this fuel truck immediately start to load up all of the fuel it can, and then it's gonna keep our gas stations running. All the station buildings, keep them at 90% filled, and that hopefully will get him going. There he goes. Okay, good. So he will start, and that's one thing. If you don't do that initially and quickly, you'll find yourself running out of fuel, and it'll be not so much fun. But yeah, so that's another thing you can do is you can switch depots around as necessary. All right, so I'm going to let this play out for a little bit as our trucks start to move in and start to deploy themselves, and we'll be back in a bit. Okay. So now that we have the ball rolling a little bit here, 2 things actually that I'm going to do before we continue is we're going to want to start building in some construction materials. The big things we're going to need are bricks, boards, steel, and prefab panels. So usually it's probably preferable to put 2 in one. So we'll have 1 for steel, 1 for prefabs, and 1 for boards, and 1 for bricks. Another thing I will build is a free road depot, and this is so I can store any vehicles and reroute them as needed. So as you can see, yay, they're all filling up. So obviously we only want a couple things here. We want steel, boards, bricks, and prefabs, and I believe that should be enough so that our boys can figure it out. So yeah, now you can, as we can see, got the ball rolling a little bit here. Everybody's leaving to go get gas. That's what they're all doing. They all got here, and now they're all going back to get gas. This will be our first initial area that we're going to build our city. So the important thing here is to make sure that everything is as close to our residential areas as possible, and to make sure that we can keep things clustered enough so that people can walk to where they need to, and that will eliminate a lot of issues in the future. So the first thing is I am actually not going to build a free bus station. We're going to build a regular we'll build a large bus station. There's no reason not to. With that, I'm going to map out our residential area. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Now perfect. Okay, just so long as they can get there, that is, again, what is the most important aspect of this whole scenario. So yeah, we have a little crosswalk here. here's our residential area. And now with that mapped out, I may mirror it on the other side. It all depends on how things go here. So now that we have our residential area built out, we now have a couple of other things that we need to deal with. Obviously, the first thing we need to deal with is food. The best thing to do is build a small shopping center, because this can get all of your needs met basically by your citizens. So it's a very, very nice, compact way, because they got goods, they got clothes, they got electronics, they got meat, they got bread. So they got everything your people need. And I don't know if this is going to work out, but part of me really wants to basically, to build a food factory here. And the reason for that being is so they can manufacture food, people can work here, they can, and this is something I'm kind of experimenting with, so I don't know if it'll actually turn out. Probably not the best thing to do for, a guide, but if it doesn't work out, you guys can just admit that. But I am hoping to build efficiency essentially by making it so, okay, good, they can walk there. Our people can work here, make the food, and it just goes right on a conveyor belt to the store. And for the meat, whatever, we can truck that in. But for the food, at least. Now, when it comes to meat, I'll just keep it trucked in. We'll keep it relatively simple for now. And that works because I can also maybe build, I can fit other things in here as well. So, for example, obviously in terms of state infrastructure, we need a kindergarten. It'd be nice if I can jam it in here. There we go. Nope. So obviously the children, they can go to school right next to the food processing plant, and everything will be awesome for them. And then beside the grocery store, we will build the next educational center that we need, which is a regular school. I don't know why it's not letting me build the road here. Oh, of course, because it's apparently this is like some sort of a gigantic fucking cliff that is insurmountable. So at least, again, you can kind of fiddle-faff around in a realism mode until you actually start building. But once you start building, you better make sure you've got everything as laid out as nicely as it possibly can be. Okay, perfect. Now we actually that worked out. So yeah, you're going to need to experiment. You're going to need to faff, figure things out a little bit. There we go. Perfect. So now they got a path here. And with that, what I'm also going to do is build an indoor swimming pool, because that will make sure that our people can, bathe and bathe. I guess they can bathe in their regular houses, but you know what I mean. They can go to and get recreational activity during the winter when we're going to need a hospital. They do, at least. It's not super imperative that people have a walking path to the hospital. The reason being is that they will have ambulances, which can go and pick up people in case of emergencies. So yeah, this last one. Now, that being said, once we do upgrade to paved roads, footpaths, paved footpaths, they will be able to reach it, because when you build paved footpaths, it increases the walking distance of your citizens. So they will be able to get there in the future, but because we have ambulances, they are going to be okay in that regard. Okay, now, the last emergency service we need is going to be a fire station. We'll build that right beside the hospital. Okay, I think that's pretty much it in terms of everything we need for our initial little building area. What I am going to do now is I'm going to build a free maintenance station here, and this will help keep things moving. This will help keep things clean in the winter, keep things moving as well. Yeah, just got to get those gravel roads, and then everybody will be able to reach everything. Yeah, In any case, so what we're going to do is I'm going to suspend construction on all my residential buildings anyway, because we're not even going to think about building and bringing in civilians until everything is built. And that could actually take quite a considerable amount of time. But this is going to be the basic layout for my initial city. As you can see, it's different from what we started off with. Though, again, the main center point is the bus station. That is always the main center point, at least for me, because at least if you can get to the bus station, people can walk there from the bus station. So now that we've got some action, we've got things building, we've got things in the works, we can start to move and think about some of our more secondary systems and how we're going to implement that into our republic. So right now that we've got our basic layout set out, our various trucks and servicemen are out there deploying the goods to where they need to go, deploying the workers to where they need to go. One thing I should just remind you guys is to always set, especially roads like this road, to high priority, so it makes sure that you're getting everything you need there. In any case, so the first thing we're going to think about now is water, and now I can move into, I guess, my official water tutorial and what I have learned through painstaking trial and error in regards to this game. We'll start off with sewage, I suppose, because sewage is a lot easier than water. The one thing you want to remember with sewage is that shit rolls downhill, and all sewage is gravity based. So you're always going to need to make sure that you're dumping your sewage into an area that has a lower elevation as much as possible. The one thing with sewage is you can just basically dump it right into any body of water. I can't really figure out which way this is flowing, this river that is. I think it's flowing this way. So let's put our sewage over here. So if you are next to a river like this is the most optimal way you can deal with this. Wait, what's going on here? Oh, okay, they still haven't brought boards here. There we go. Okay. Anyway, so as I was saying, shit rolls downhill. And if you have a sewage area, if you're right next to a river like this is the optimum setup. It's very easy. We just find an area that's flat enough. The hardest part is going to be finding an area in which I can actually build this thing. That would be the hardest part. Oh, there we go. One of the things, however, you can do, and this is a nice trick, if you are in an area that you're not, you don't have a water source around, what you can do is basically take your bulldozers, and because you should have them, you can just dig straight down. You can just dig straight down, and eventually you'll hit a pool of water. So again, back to our discussion of sewage. So again, it's pretty easy. We're just going to dump our sewage into the river here. Let's turn on. So let's turn on the underground mode, and we are going to, if you want to build a sewage switch here. So we're going to want to make sure things are as connected as possible. So with that, we actually don't need, one of the only times I'm going to say don't build large pipes is with sewage pipes. So yeah, it'll tell you if you are not building downhill effectively. And there we go. Okay, sewage system. That should be good. Now, on to water, which is a little bit more complex. So the thing about water is it's going to need a multi-stage system in order to actually work for you. So there are a couple ways you can get water. And one is through the river, which is what we're going to do for our playthrough here. Or if you wanted to, you can build a small water well. If I could find, again, a place to fucking... Here. So yeah, water quality here is not the best. That's unfortunate. So the thing about water that you really want to be aware of is the fact that, again, with water, everything is gravity based. So you're going to need to have some sort of gravity or pump to create pressure on the water system. So this is what I'm doing right here, is that our water is going to get pumped out of the lake, and it's going to get pumped into this small water tower, and then the water tower will then use gravity to pump it into our water treatment center. I'm lucky it will have enough, that will have enough pressure that I can then pump it out of my water treatment plant into this large water tower. And once it gets put into this large water tower, that can effectively act as a gravity well for water to, be pushed through the pipes. So effectively, what I'm trying to say here is that with a water tower, you can use it as a way of harnessing gravity to create pressure in your pipes. So obviously having a big water tower, as gravity is going to push down on the water in the tower, and that's going to create pressure, which will allow the water to flow throughout your system. So this is going to be our basic water setup for now. So it's going to come out of the river. It's going to get pumped into the small water tower, and the untreated water is going to chill in this water tower until it's ready to get fed down into our treatment plant. And it's going to get fed out of the treatment plant into our big water tower, which is going to have clean, fresh water for our citizens to use. So now that we have that set up, we're going to need some water stations in which our citizens can actually get their water out of. Pipes are ready, and they are, oh shit, one last thing I forgot that I want. Okay, good. I still have output. One thing you should always do, and you may not always need this, but it is always good to have, is to have your water section, have your water treatment plant connected to a loading unloading station, because this will allow water trucks to get access to your clean, fresh water in an instance where they might need it. All right, so there's our water setup. Water and sewage are now golden. So with that, we have effectively one last setup that we're going to need to get done, which is going to be power. And initially, we are going to rely on imported power, and eventually we're going to move through the steps to get our own power. But unfortunately, with realism mode, in order to get your power stations, it takes a long time to get your power set up. So in the meantime, we are just going to rely on foreign sources. So with my power, I try to be a little bit more reserved, because with my placement, because again, it's a real pain in the ass to mess about with things once you have them all set out. So try and lay them out as nicely as you can. I'm just thinking about where I'm going to place my medium voltage switches. Okay, now we have power, we got water, we've got things all set up as neatly as they're going to be for now. Now, the main question I'm sure most of you are asking is, well, how are we going to get money? How are we going to continue to make money for our republic? Well, dear comrades, the answer, unfortunately for us, is no longer oil. We can move into oil once things are set up, but unfortunately that will just take too long and more resources than we have. This means that in the interim, our main source of income is going to be textiles. They're a great cash source in the game. They happen to be pretty easily transported. They don't require a whole ton of goods to make, and they sell for a pretty penny. So textiles is a very, very good and solid option to move into. Another great thing about them is that they are fairly compact, and they don't require a lot of space to build. And the main question is, where am I going to build my... Oh, that reminds me, actually, there is one more thing, and I will probably connect that in adjacent to my textile factory, which is going to be heating. So I think we're going to do all of that here, because I want to get another thing I want here is I want stone, and that's I'm going to get that from this mountain right here, so we can actually stop buying gravel from alternate sources. Speaking of which, I just realized our first gravel upgrade is complete. Hurrah, hurrah! Now it is time to continue. It's both to high priority, and we will continue the expansion of the gravel road. So obviously the thinking, you can see where we're going, right? We're going to build up this road in stages. Once we upgrade from this gravel road, we're going to start upgrading the other side to gravel and then to paved, and then, we'll have an actual real highway that's usable. There we go. Perfect. Can we now get our own gravel up and running? And on this other side here, we can now start to look at our textile industry. So the way you want to go with the textile here is this setup is pretty simple. You want a fabric factory in the middle, which is what we're going to do. And then on either side, clothing factories. Very nice, clean setup. And that's it. Obviously, we are going to want to put a bus depot here because we're going to need to get people to work somehow. I just want to build our gravel processing a little bit closer, because then I can get people. I only need one bus, right, to get people to work. All right. So after another struggle, our ugliest sin gravel pit is ready to go, and now we can begin the last aspect of the puzzle, which is going to be heating. Oh my god, look at that. Oh, what a beauty. I almost want to build that. Looks like looks like a roller coaster or some shit. I can't do it though. I can't. They talk about border gore. This is like, I don't know what kind of building gore, city gore, I don't know what. Okay. After painstaking and laboring, after a painstaking and laborious process, we have finally, I think, set out everything we need to get this city up and running at the start. So with that, I am at a point where we can really let this build out. And this is what I mean by you need patience to succeed in this mode. Because now that we have everything laid out, it's probably going to take a couple years for it all to get built. So yeah, we're going to have to basically sit back and let it happen. And if anything important happens, I will definitely be here to let you guys know. Oh shit, actually there is something that I have forgotten. Somewhat. Outside, I do like to have a little bit of a distribution center. And another thing I want to add to this warehouse. Meat storage. There we go. I get some meat storage in there, and then I want to get a little distribution office right here. Yeah, so he can get food basically and store it here. So with winter approaching, our city is starting to take shape. Our main road is pretty much complete into the town itself, and a few buildings are popping up here and there. We have finished a pub and our bus platform and a couple, playgrounds and fields and whatnot. Another thing I've decided to do is just bite the bullet and automatically upgrade all my paths to, looks like I missed one here, just upgrade them all to gravel paths before I even think about bringing people in, and that will hopefully alleviate any mobility concerns before they even pop up. And with that, the big thing is that winter is coming, and it's not going to be a big deal because we don't have anybody in here yet. And like I said at the start of this guide here, patience is your number one ally when it comes to building your city in realism mode, and just letting things happen and getting it all done before you even think about bringing people in. And now that everything is laid out, it's not really that challenging. It's just watching things and making sure that they are building out in the right way, and have offices assigned. Like for this medium switch, I don't have any offices assigned. I can't get anybody there because I don't have a road. Now I do, so I can get my construction offices out there and building the medium voltage switch now. So it's just letting everything happen. You know what, guys? I say she's got a pretty sweet dumper. So it's wintertime now, and things really slow to a crawl during winter. They have a couple snowplows doing the best they can, but it snows pretty frequently, so it's really difficult to get things moving through these snowy roads. So yeah, things slow down. It's like dead time almost, but we continue to plow forward. So now it's been about 2 years since we have started to establish our republic, and things are coming together. Unfortunately, I was hoping to be able to move people in at the 2-year mark. I don't think we're going to be there because, while our things like our water systems are coming up, and our water systems are coming together, unfortunately, they are still not done yet. A lot of our pipes still aren't done. A lot of our sewage area still isn't done. And our employment area isn't done yet either. So we have a couple of things that need to be finished before we can start to bring in people. Unfortunately, our heating area isn't done yet either. But right now everything's being built by foreign workers. So the foreign workers are working diligently. You can see we have our warehouses built. A couple important things. For example, I built now a proper construction office to help alleviate some of the burden and bring in a couple more pieces of equipment. I also am now started to build. This is where our farm is going to be, and right now the nice thing about farms, you don't actually need workers to run it. It can all be run by machines, so we can leave it on the outskirts over here. So our farm is coming together, everything is coming together. But unfortunately, it's taking a little bit more time than I thought it was going to. So, but really, it's not a big deal. There's no rush. I should also mention that our roads are now completely paved with gravel. I just bit the bullet and paved everything in the city center with gravel before I brought people in. So hopefully there shouldn't be any mobility issues. But now we're at the point where, as you can see, I've even got an asphalt road coming in. So things are looking pretty good. But right now, my goal is to start moving people in at this time next year. So we are in July 1963, and I could start moving people in. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to wait till next year. I did a trial run where I tried to move people in around this time, and there was a couple issues. The main thing that I found out is that, unfortunately, yes, we are going to need a pump to get the clean water from the filtration pump it up into our big water tower, and then from the big water tower, the gravity force should be enough to force the water through the pipes from there. It's unfortunate, but I was really hoping that the gravity force from this small water tower would be enough to force it through the chemical treatment plant, but unfortunately that was not the case. So that'll have to be finished before we can move people in. Another thing I've done is I've finished the farm, and unfortunately it did not get finished in time for the actual harvest this year to happen. And that's part of the reason why I haven't brought people in this year. And then I also, in addition to that, have put a couple, just kind of really doing the final touches. I've decided to build a distillery here as well as the food processing plant. It's not going to be connected directly to the pub. It doesn't need to be. Most of it is going to be sold for goods anyway. And then I've also placed a couple of Red Star monuments here. This will help keep loyalty higher, so we won't have to worry about it as much. And then I also put kind of a nice little Soviet emblem, and that'll just be for aesthetics. So with that being said, I am taking this final year before I actually move people in, and we're going to move people in probably right at the beginning of, once the snow melts next year. I want people in the town and people in the city. One of the issues I ran into when I did my trial run is that my buildings did not have the goods already in them to function. So one of the things I'm doing is setting up my distribution network before I move people in. That was something that I had been doing after I had moved people into the city, and it was not as efficient, I think, as actually setting things up beforehand. So what I've done is a similar system to what I've set up with our construction goods. So I have a small distribution office here. Their job is to go and get everything the town needs from the border and dump it into this warehouse. And then I have an actual town distribution office right here, building up another one because we're going to need a lot of distribution offices in realism mode. This one will probably be to bring crops over and maybe anything else that I need once everything's all said and done. So in any case, this distribution office takes the goods from the warehouse and then plops them into the various buildings that they need to be plopped into. So this guy is taking crops. I'm assuming he's taking it to the food factory. You know, that's exactly what he's doing. And so he's going to dump it in there. And then once I bring people in, they'll immediately be able to jump in the food factory and start dumping food into the shopping center. But the shopping center as well is also going to have goods in it. They haven't gone around to grabbing the clothes and electronics yet, I think, which is unfortunate, but you know, we'll get there. So as well as that, on top of that, I'm also having them put chemicals in the water treatment plant, as well as our fabric factory needs both chemicals and crops. So they are doing that as well, so we can hit the ground running as soon as we get the opportunity. Oh, geez, I just realized they hadn't finished these conveyor belts, so let's get those done for sure. Okay, so we'll get that done. And then last thing is that we're also going to need heating, so I've set up another small free distribution office with 2 dump trucks, and their job is to just bring coal in. So when winter hits, we'll have enough coal to make sure everybody is heated as well. So that is the plan for the next 8 months of the game, and then we'll be back once it's March and all the snow is melted. Another thing I forgot to mention before I move on is that I tried to store some meat, but as you can see, and I was kind of hoping this wouldn't be the case, but unfortunately it is, the developers have thought of this, is that if you have meat stored in a building without power supply, it begins to deteriorate over time. It's not actually a very fast deterioration, it's a pretty slow deterioration. But that being said, so I haven't brought meat in, or I'm not bringing meat in anymore, but I will bring it in as soon as we're bringing people. And the reason for that is I don't want to actually power these buildings yet and waste money on power when we're really not doing anything. Alright, comrades, after years of preparation and planning and painstakingly building us up, we are finally ready to pretty much begin bringing in people into our wonderful little republic. So as you can see, I've begun construction on our prefabricated settlements here. Oh, that would have been a disaster. Anyway, I've been trying to make them as even as possible, just to make sure that everybody kind of comes into existence at the same time, but that's not 100% possible. In any case, so what I'm going to be doing here is we're going to be bringing in people in 3 waves. The first wave is going to be these first 4 tenements set up. And if everything goes good with these first 4, we're going to do the second wave, which is going to be 2 more, and then the final wave, which will be the last 2. My big concern is running out of water or overextending our resources. So it's better to kind of bring people in as a trickle to make sure that, you know, your infrastructure can sustain the large amount of people that you're bringing in. And if that's all good to go, feel free to keep bringing in as many people as you can possibly handle, because you will get more, you'll get more money if more people are working and making goods and that kind of stuff. Just another thing to mention is that now that it's March, we can officially start sowing our fields. We have a large farm here. I've got 6 fields and 6 vehicles. We can easily expand this if we want to, depending on how much crops we need. Crops will be a very big resource for us. Obviously, we need to feed our people. So crops go into food production, they go into alcohol production. We're going to move into meat eventually. They'll grow into meat production, but also goes into fabric production, which is essential. Oops, that's a clothing factory. Here's a fabric factory. Yeah. So anyway, it goes into fabric production, which is essential for our clothing operation. So we are definitely going to need lots and lots of crops. It will be a #1 staple resource for us. So if we need more, I have a setup that we can expand it. So in any case, we have our first prefabricated settlement set up. This means that it is now time to officially start bringing in power. We are going to import a small amount of power. That's all we need. And while, some of you may balk at the idea of importing power, I'll show you that power is really not that expensive, and you'll be able to cover the costs of powering your republic pretty easily. And you won't need to necessarily so much worry about powering your, getting your own power until you've got a couple of other things up and running. So there we go. Power is on. Temperature is too low. That is surprising, I guess. But that will resolve itself very, very quickly. It's the middle of March, so they will get that resolved. But yeah, so now the nice thing is that these guys can actually help to finish building the other tenements here and the other prefabricated settlements and get going. Oh, don't leave the works. Hey, don't leave. Okay, good. Okay, woo! All right, we got some people in here, and they should start going to our chemical treatment plant and dealing with the water issue. And there they go. I can see them walking there. Okay, here we go. All right, we have water officially being processed. I will go into here. You can see that we do actually have pressure going in, which is great. And then output will also have a huge amount of pressure as it will start to fill up our water cisterns. See if we can pick out one of them. There we go. We can see that our water is filling up with 99% quality water, which is excellent. And here's another thing I'm going to do. I'm going to limit staff in certain buildings, because if I don't, like, everybody will go there and it will be a massive pain in the ass, and I won't have enough people to go to where I actually want them to go. For example, the clothing factory. So just limit a couple buildings. I don't need these many sellers at the shopping center, I think. It's a tough call, but I think they'll be okay. All right, so that should be good. I get another couple of covered halls here. This is going to be my distribution office for grain predominantly. Okay, and now with that, we should hopefully we got workers going to the bus station. If you don't limit your staff at various buildings, what can happen is that you won't have excess workers go to the bus station. They won't be getting on the bus and then going over to these other nice little resource nodes that I've set up for them. But as you can see, 71 workers waiting, which is awesome. It's beautiful. Okay, so now we can change some of our distribution around. So the first thing we're going to do to start getting money is sell off our excess booze. We don't need that much booze. It's got a pretty good profit ratio considering it just its crops to make. And we only have the 1 bar, and most people, they will not consume it as they won't consume that much. So we have an opportunity to export a lot of it abroad, which is exactly what we're going to do. So I have another distribution network here. This is for export. So I've got 2 free distribution here. One is for importing, and this one is for exporting. So I'm going to set up my export one with the exception of meat. He does import meat. And there we go. So he is now going to start taking our first shipments of alcohol and bring them to the border, and we can get our first actual money coming in. So our first month of people living in the city has come and gone. And now that we have reached May, what I'm doing, or what I'm going to do, is I'm just going to stop building things. Like, I'm not going to build anything anymore. I'm just going to let things run as they are. And then we're going to kind of get a baseline of how much money things are making, how much goods are being produced, and if we're actually turning a profit. Thing I should mention here, and I'll park onto you guys, I made a little bit of a mistake in some of my warehouse capacity. For example, I put a bunch of food here. I'm no longer seeing that I'm no longer realizing that I need food in the warehouse at all with this new system that I've developed here, which is having the food factory right beside a small shopping center. Now I don't need to have trucks distribute food to the shopping center. So what I'm going to do is probably just end up selling that food off. It sucks to kind of, because we bought it from a foreign country. Now we're going to sell it back to the same country at a loss. But that being said, it's not a huge deal. Another thing is that I put too much clothes in here. I don't need this much clothes. In fact, maybe I can, in any case, yeah, didn't need that much clothes. I spent way too much money importing clothes into the warehouse. And again, it's going to be a similar issue where I don't really need that much clothes. So some of it is probably going to get re-exported at a loss. Again, it's not a huge deal. It's not like we're losing a ton of money or anything like that. But it's one of the things that if you guys want to build your own city, you might want to be aware of, is how to adequately distribute the resources in your warehouse. All right, so June is over. Let us take a look at our stats in May. I did have to pay a little bit to bring in some foreign workers, which is unfortunate. But I don't think that's going to foreign manpower. It only cost us 360. Oh no, that was how much did I spend? Okay, not too much. $2,000 just on foreign manpower. All right, so let's check our balance sheet. So we made a total of almost 75,000 ruples last month. And let's see if we can get a better breakdown of some of our exports. So we export a lot of clothes and alcohol. We probably are not going to be exporting this much clothes. Like I said, it is a lot of this is our excess from leftover vestiges of the excess clothing that I purchased. So that would probably be cut in half in terms of our profit margin once we get start relying on our own clothes. Still, that's pretty dang good. Alcohol was another big seller. If we go back here, let's see what our expenses were. So in terms of our expenses, they were much less than our income. So even if we were just to rely on selling alcohol, we would still be making money, albeit not a huge amount, but we'd still be in the green, which is awesome. And that's like the number one thing you want to see once you set this whole project up and you finally start bringing people in. You want to make sure that you're actually producing some sort of money, because if you're not, then you're going to really struggle to build up your republic. So, oh, whoops, I'm not finished looking at that. Let's see our exact expenses, what caused us to spend so much money. So here we can see our imports were pretty minimal. We don't need many imports now that we've brought most of what we need in. Our biggest expense was crops, which thankfully we're going to cut in half. Excuse me, not cut in half. We're going to eliminate entirely pretty soon. Once our farms get online here, we're going to really cut the amount of money we're spending on crops. Below that is fuel, 15 tons of fuel for almost 250,000, or sorry, 2,500 ruples. Not bad at all. Not when you consider, right, how many vehicles we have going around and everything like that. It's only 2,500 ruples to fuel everything, to fuel all our vehicles. Really reasonable, in my opinion. But the one thing that I want to draw your guys' attention to is power. Only 1,700 ruples in terms of fueling, in terms of powering our republic per month. And that's nothing. It's like one shipment of alcohol. So what I want to say to you guys is don't stress too much about importing power. It's pretty cheap, and it's definitely not going to break the bank. Whereas if you were to, say, for example, spend a lot of time making your own power before you brought everybody in, you might end up wasting a lot of resources, right? We're only at a million rubles. We started with, I think it was 3.5 million rubles. So we've spent 2.5 million. I think I could probably get that down to just 2 if I were to, adjust things a little bit. But that being said, it was a lot of money to set this whole thing up, and to even try and bring power in on top of that, you're going to be spending a ton of money to bring power operational to your republic. And even if you do, when everything is said and done, you're really not going to be saving that much money. You're really not going to be producing that much. It would be much more beneficial to you if you were thinking about producing power in terms of selling it to another country. But that's not what we're doing, and I wouldn't recommend that, because I don't think it's a very good way to actually, to actually bring money into your republic. So with that, I think this is pretty much it. Like, this is pretty much the guide to starting your successful city in realism mode. So what I'm going to do to end this guide really is I'm going to take some time. I'm going to bring in the rest of our tenements. Hopefully that doesn't overwhelm us. In fact, let us start the second wave right now. And hopefully that doesn't overwhelm us. And then we're going to bring in everybody, and I'm going to show you guys year 2 what things look like once we've had the opportunity to really let things fly. So it's August now, and we finally have our crops ready to go. We have our trucks beginning to grab it from the various farms, and our distribution vehicles are now, I've had them, like I said, this one is pretty much exclusively for, I'm going to just bite the bullet and get a whole fucking shit ton of covered holes here. So yeah, these guys have the duty of basically, they go and they get the crops and they bring it to the various places that they need to. They get it directly from the farm now. I'm going to stop holding crops in the warehouse pretty quick here, and we'll just rely on our farms, but I'm going to have it for a buffer for a little bit at least. Either way, though, we have our trucks that are grabbing the crops. They are dumping it into here. How much do we have? We've already got 25 tons. And I'm assuming we're going to have, here we go. We have distribution trucks moving into the farm, grabbing our first shipments of crops. And they're going to, like I said, take them directly to the input buildings that they need now, rather than staging them at the warehouse, because I'm starting to get a little bit of a traffic jam at the warehouse and starting to make me nervous. So I'm going to try and alleviate that a little bit by having the crops bypass it. I mean, we don't need a crop warehouse anyway. We've got the grain storage right here. But other than that, so another thing, I have the building of our new areas went very, very smoothly. My only real concern is I used dollars to buy a bunch of immigrants from the third world, and the issue is that they come as uneducated workers, so they need to go to the classroom, educate themselves, and then they can get jobs. And some of them have done that. As you can see, a few of them have started to work. Initially, all of these guys couldn't work. Does it say, yeah, education level 2 work? Okay, too low to work. So they're just going to chill and hopefully get educated and become productive workers. Other than that, though, our initial addition to these new high-rises has gone off pretty well, so I'm not that concerned about it. Our water still is high. Let me just make sure our cisterns aren't draining. Nope, doesn't look like our cisterns are draining. So this is good. It's very good. Again, oh, and another thing that I have started to do and will start to do is I'm building a technical university here. This is going to be a pretty slow burn, but the main thing I'm trying to do is start to get, some university educated workers, so we can get more doctors and get more teachers and that sort of shit. So it's now December, and things are going pretty well for the most part. I've had to spend a bunch of money To basically what I'm trying to do is get my uh, grain distribution intact. So I built a large distribution office because what I had before just wasn't cutting it. And I just dumped a shit ton of covered hulls into this, and their entire job now, I've taken everybody else off grain. This medium distribution office, their entire job is to just get grain and get it to the buildings that need it. But speaking of grain, unfortunately, it seemed like we had a lot to go on, but now we're already down. We had 800 at the beginning of November, and now we're down to 400 tons of crops. So it doesn't look like we're gonna get past the snow very much. So we're coming in just about a year after we have brought people to our little republic, and things are going okay. I've done a couple adjustments to some of the road systems and logistics systems. For example, I put in this little backdoor shortcut right here that connects all my distribution offices to the warehouse and the customs house without having to go along our main highway, which has definitely helped alleviate a lot of traffic jams. And I'm hoping will also help us move goods through our republic a little bit more smoothly. Unfortunately, I am coming to some bottlenecks, even though I have an entire large distribution office dedicated to the purchase of dedicated to the purpose of getting grain and distributing it to the buildings that need it. We are still not getting enough grain to places that need it. We're almost out of grain here, almost out of grain here, almost out of grain here, and we have trucks constantly going back and forth, bringing grain to where it needs to go. The next obvious candidate for a resource for a republic is going to be coal, because you use coal to heat your republic for one, and that will also give you access to cement, and then I can use our gravel and coal to create cement for us, which will then give us access to another building block for the republic. Right now we have plenty of gravel. We got 700 tons of gravel, and it's great to no longer have to spend money on building roads and whatnot. It's all for free, taken care of by our own resources, which is awesome. I've also started to phase out foreign manpower, beginning to rely on our own workers for construction. So it is all slowly but surely coming together. There are still some issues. I don't know if I mentioned that I have added 3 farms to our farming complex this year. I also intend to build another grain silo, which will be easy enough for us to take care of because we can just kind of daisy chain grain silos together as necessary. So I think the big question for me going forward is going to be, how many farms am I really going to need to get all the crops I need in a year and store them all in a year? I think it's going to be a lot of farms because we are heavily relying on crops for a lot of our resources. So just to come back here, at the end of May, we actually did pretty good because I realized that a bunch of cloves got sold right at the end of the month there. And put our profits through the roof. We actually ended up with plus 17,000 rubles. So that actually ended up working out pretty good for us. So I am continuing to be optimistic about this setup, but I'm not going to officially declare it a success just yet. I do want to give it a little bit more time to make sure that it actually gains money instead of losing money, because that to me is the key to starting a successful city in this game. So make sure that you have a setup that is actually going to get you money, so you can continue to add in new resources to the republic, and that will hopefully gain you that will hopefully gain you more money because you're spending less money importing, and that's kind of the gameplay, the satisfying gameplay loop for this game for me. So we are well into the harvest season, and we are clawing our way back into some decent profits. As you can see, this month we're at plus 30,000. Last month we were at plus 36,000. My big concern is that, this isn't going to last long. Now with my distribution offices focused entirely on grain we can't even begin to fill up a single silo. So with our final setup, this gives you about 3,000 citizens. The big thing here is that I've been managing. The big thing here is I've been looking at my water intake, and that so long as I maintain a flow, or so long as my buildings need less than 40 cubic meters per day, I'm good. If this goes above 40, if I, right now I'm at 30 cubic meters, 31 cubic meters per day, but if it goes above 40, which sometimes happens depending on the demand, say from the fabric factory, I'll start to lose water in the water tower. But fortunately, with this large buffer, it never gets anywhere close to being, okay, so here we go, we're above 40. See, we lost a little bit of water, but it drops back down pretty quickly. And we're able to refill it once it drops below 40. So our water intake is pretty good. So we're now in January, and it's been our first year of letting our Republic run without hindrance, and we can see, let's go to last year, we made a total of 119,585 rubles, which is great. Honestly, that is an awesome return over the year, and things are only going to get better for us as we continue to build more farms and upgrade our resources and fill out the various things that we need to build our republic so we don't have to export them. And over time, that number is going to go up and up and up. The most important thing is to establish your solid baseline, and then from there you can always build. But the main thing I would caution you guys is to build slowly, because you can get to points where you can overextend yourself and things can unravel pretty quickly. So make sure you're having pretty measured growth. So I figured some of you guys might actually want to see what the import-export ledger looks like. So we spend most of our money on chemicals, importing chemicals, which are needed for a lot of things. Crops still, importing more rather. We imported a ton of chemicals, a ton of crops, fuel, and power. And then after that, it's just things like meat, electronics, steel, building materials. Building materials come and go, but a lot of these are constant drains on your economy. But in terms of our contribution, most of it came from clothes. 125 tons of clothes, and then 655 tons of alcohol. And I've also been exporting my extra food because we have so much of it that it's not, there's no reason to just have it sit around in the warehouse not doing anything. May as well sell it, get some extra money. And with that, dear comrades, I think we can declare this city a success and say that this guide is officially over. I think that all that you really need to succeed in realism mode is a little bit of patience, and make sure you are planning ahead, a little bit of foresight as well. And also another big thing, sometimes you accidentally erase roads and stuff like that. I had that happen a couple times throughout this playthrough. So try to avoid that. Make sure you once you've built it, make sure it's there forever. It's there forever. So make sure that you sort of measure twice, cut once, so to speak. So just as a final overview, our little republic has just under 3,000 people living in it, 2% unemployment and 74% health-wise, and 86% happiness. And that is the big one. Having everybody happy is very, very important, because if they're not, they'll start to leave, and then things can start to unravel because you don't have enough workers, things aren't functioning properly, it's a mess. So having people nice and happy is a huge benefit to making everything run well. So things to remember before we leave off. This at this point I would pretty much, this is useless, but our initial staging area, our initial staging distribution point is now pretty much useless. But at the start, this was exceptionally useful to avoid traffic jams and whatnot. So you need 2 points. You need a staging point and you need a construction area. And you also need another area to hold your goods for your actual town. And as well as having 2 roads that you upgrade alongside one another will be a huge benefit, because now at this point we have this wonderful highway that leads right into the middle of town and things are running very smoothly. So if you guys have any questions or comments or want to have me clarify anything, just let me know. And if you guys want me to continue this Let's Play, or if you guys want me to continue with this city and show you guys how things evolve over time, I'm happy to do that as well. Just let me know in the comment section below. And this has been Comrades signing off for now. Until next time, you guys take care.